It's time to lie back, allow your eyes to feel heavy, and enter that phantasmagorical realm of dreams. But really though, don't fall asleep during this video because it's gonna be a long one. Released in 1989, written by Neil Gaiman with art by Sam Keith and Mike Dringenberg, this is Sandman, Volume 1, Preludes and Nocturnes. The story begins on June 6th, 1916, in Witchcross, England. An old man arrives in his automobile and walks to the front door where he's greeted by the butler and is then led to meet a Mr. Burgess. The man, Dr. Hathaway, meets Burgess in some strange library room and Burgess asks if he has reconsidered their deal. Hathaway tells him his son died when his destroyer was sunk and he's brought Burgess the book. The book about death. The Magdalene Grimoire. A grimoire is a book of spells. Burgess grabs the book and says that come next full moon, no one will ever die again. 4 days later, in Toronto, Canada, a young Ellie Marston is terrified by the story Through the Looking Glass. In Kingston, Jamaica, Daniel Bustamante sleeps, dreaming of a castle made of clouds. In Verdun, France, Stefan Wasserman, aged 13 and a half, prepares to go over the top line of the trenches again. He lied about his age to enlist. In London, England, Unity Kincaid dreams of a tall, dark man with eyes that burn like twin stars as she tosses and turns. And in Witchcross, England, Roderick Burgess has waking dreams of power, glory, and death. In the cellar below the manor, the clock strikes midnight. Burgess and his son Alex prepare for the ceremony. They enter a room with a large symbol etched into the floor, surrounded by candles and robed figures, and then they begin the ceremony. They plan on capturing death itself. Burgess draws his own blood as he allows it to drip onto the ground as those around him all chant the word come. Then he recites the ritual. Coin and son, knife and stick, claw and name, blood and feather, here in darkness, we summon you together. Come! And a figure sporting a large black cloak and a massive helmet that kind of looks like a space jockey helmet from Alien falls limp into the circle. Burgess says, "We failed. This isn't death." Before he grabs the large red gem, a bag of sand, and disrobes the shadowy figure, leaving the Lord of the Dream World naked in a circle. In Toronto, little Ellie falls asleep, never waking again. In Kingston, Daniel is too frightened to sleep. In Verdun, Stefan is left in a catatonic state, also unable to sleep. In London, Unity Kincaid falls into an unmoving, unending slumber. And in Witchcross, Dream remains trapped, continually observed by Burgess. In 1920, Burgess has Hathaway murdered to keep him from confessing to the theft of numerous books and manuscripts from the Royal Museum. Then he's cleared of all his accusations due to a lack of evidence, and he also gets this sick nickname called the Demon King due to his leadership of the Order of the Ancient Mysteries. Meanwhile, the so-called sleepy sickness continues to kill those both unable and able to sleep. In 1926, Dream has been imprisoned for a decade and he hasn't made a single sound. An aging Burgess makes plans for a man named Ruthven Sykes to take over for the Order when he passes. In 1930, Sykes steals Burgess's girl, steals the purloined possessions of Dream, and moves to San Francisco. And, knowing that Burgess will wage a magical war upon him, Sykes contacts a demon to provide him with protection, and he offers the demon Dream's helm as payment. Meanwhile, Burgess sacrifices a cat to kill Sykes. In 1936, Sykes' girl steals herself and the amulet the demon gave him as a protection, and leaves him, causing all the rituals that have been building up for the past 6 years to explode him entirely. 3 years later, in Toronto, Ellie is now in a charity ward, still sleeping. She's only woken twice in the past decade. Both times, she thinks she's 8 and begins crying for her mother. In Kingston, Daniel had succumbed to sleepy sickness in 1926. He's been sleeping for 13 years. His wife and children miss him. In London, Unity Kincaid was raped 7 years prior and gave birth to a baby girl. The baby was adopted, and Unity slept through the whole ordeal. In America, Wesley Dodds becomes the Sandman, a vigilante that puts villains to sleep and sprinkles sand on them for police to find. An idea that came to him in his dreams. In 1955, Dream has been imprisoned for 39 years. In Toronto, Ellie wakes 4 or 5 times a year, asking for someone to read her a story. In Kingston, Daniel has finally awoken, only to become a walking husk. He truly died long ago. In London, Unity Kincaid is in a nursing home. The rare times she wakes, she does so with total amnesia. Alex Burgess, having taken over for his father who died a decade prior, lives with his partner Paul McGuire. Paul pleads with Alex to free the Pale Man in their basement, but Alex assures him that they're much safer with him down there. Later, Alex offers Dream the same deal as his father, immortality for Dream's freedom. Dream slowly looks up at Alex, and from his pale lips comes a single "No." In 1968, Alex is getting into tantric sex and psychedelics. In Toronto, Ellie is now in a specialized hospital. In Kingston, Daniel sleepwalks slowly through the world. And in London, Unity Kincaid sleeps. And in Witchcross, 2 guards sit in Dream's jail room at all times, full of coffee and amphetamines, assuring that they never sleep on shift. In 1970, Alex retires and gives leadership of the organization to Paul. For the next 18 years, Alex tries again and again to get Dream to speak. And as Alex is wheeled out of the room, the tire interrupts the circle in the ground. Dream enters one of the guards' dreams. He's at a beach, full of sand. Then, Dream collapses. The guards all rush around and Paul runs in and tells them to open the giant glass cage thing to check out what's going on, because this is the first time he's fucking done that in the past goddamn however long it's been. And as 2 guards enter the jail, Dream opens his hand to reveal it's full of sand, and he blows it at the men and they're all thrown away through the air in a slumber. Then he opens a portal into the dreaming and enters it. Dream has finally been freed, and he weekly makes his way through people's dreams, eating and acquiring clothing, and now all that's left are his tools and revenge. All over the world, people begin to awaken. In Toronto, Ellie wakes up along with the entire hospital. In Kingston, Daniel is alive once more. In London, Unity Kincaid awakens and says, "My baby. I dreamed I had a baby." And in Witchcross, Alex Burgess takes his nap, because he's old. He finds himself in an endless hall, and as he walks it, he regains his youth, and then he begins to follow a black cat up the stairs into a room with a single chair. The cat takes a seat, and Dream takes form, and says, "Hello, what's the matter? Cat, cut your tongue." Alex panics and pleads Dream for forgiveness, but Dream is just like, "Shh. There are offenses that are unpardonable. Can you have any idea what it was like? Confined to a glass box for 60 years and 10. A human lifetime. Time moves no faster for my kind than it does for you humans. I felt it at a snail's pace. I am the lord of this realm, dream and nightmare. Your father used a petty and poor spell to imprison me. You threatened, cajoled, and pleaded for gifts neither you nor mankind deserved or are mine to give. You had no thought of the harm you brought to your world. What is your excuse? We didn't mean it. It was a mistake. We wanted to capture death. What? You wanted to capture death? Consider yourself lucky for the sake of your species. You did not succeed. Instead, you snared death's younger brother. Then Dream demands to know where his pouch, helm, and ruby are, but Alex says that Sykes stole it about 50 years ago. So Dream just says, "For your punishment, I will grant you a gift. I give you this, eternal waking." Alex then wakes up in a panic and he calls for his nurse, but as she comes in, she like melts. Because you see, eternal waking is when you just repeatedly wake up, but every time you do so, it's in a dream. An eternal cycle of endless nightmares. Cut to the House of Mystery. Cain and Abel, yes, they are that Cain and Abel, are the curators of the House of Mystery, which used to be a comic series that had Cain as the host of a horror anthology series, and like one time, fucking Elvira took over. But that's not important right now. Anyway, Cain has a present for Abel, and Abel, who I always imagined had the voice of Wayne Knight, is too scared to open it. Suddenly, someone slams on their door. Cain says it's probably just Gregory, but makes Abel open the door just in case it's something that could kill them. They open the door to see Gregory, the doofy-looking gargoyle, holding Dream. Dream wakes up in their home and Abel runs to tell Cain, and then Cain enters with a tray of food, and Dream asks if Cain owns anything of his. Cain says no, but Abel brings Dream their letters of commission, and then Dream grabs them and absorbs the piece of himself he left inside them. Cut to Arkham Asylum. An old woman named Ethel D goes to meet her son, John D, aka Dr. Destiny. So she's led down into the fucking stone-walled dungeon that is Arkham Asylum, and Ethel walks to the bars and calls for her son, and he says,
"Brother, you look so old. Things are so strange these days. Mother, they took my dreams away from me."
And a horrific melty man appears and bangs against the bars. Meanwhile, in the dreaming, Dream leaves the House of Mystery, and in the infinite Duskland outside the dream world, Dream walks to the gates of his castle, and they open, and Dream finds his home desolate and destroyed. Dream's butler, Lucien, appears and tells his master what happened. Basically, his servants dispersed into like the dream stuff that had created them, and these other two named Brute and Blob vanished like 40 years ago, and Cain and Abel seem to be getting weirder. Also, everything's gone. So Dream takes his castle into his hands and crushes it. Lucien tells Dream to summon the 3-in-1. Erd, Verdandi, and Skald, who are the 3 Norns from Norse mythology, fun fact. So Dream summons them, and they appear as, like, a fat woman, a blonde woman with, like, big lips and black eyes, a witch who looks like how Marvel used to draw Aunt May. Holy shit, the blonde girl's Gwen Stacy. Anyway, Dream asks the 3 each one question. He asks Cynthia where his pouch of sand is, and she tells him that John Constantine is in possession of it. Oh boy, I bet you can't wait for that accent. He asks Mildred where his helm is, and she tells him it was traded to a demon long ago. And finally, he asks Mordred where his dreamstone is, and she tells him that the League of Justice knows its whereabouts. Then they disappear. Dream begins walking and decides on obtaining the pouch of sand first because, like, hey, what the hell could go wrong? I mean, come on, Constantine's just a human. What could possibly go wrong? Cut to some suburban home. A woman with sores all over her body lies in her bed using sand from a magical pouch. Cut to the apartment of John Constantine. He wakes up to the sound of his alarm, grabs a fag, and lights it. What? I can say that. That's what cigarettes are called. John gets ready and dressed and leaves his apartment as his radio plays Mr. Sandman. He exits the door and holy shit! Either he's a giant or that's a tiny house. Anyway, he walks down to the diner and orders a cheeseburger and 2 cups of coffee when a vagrant starts thumping on the window. John turns around and recognizes the vagrant as none other than Mad Hetty, and she's an old witch, basically. John goes outside and meets her, and she tells him that Morpheus, the Sandman, is back. And John says that the Sandman's just a fairy tale and walks away as Hetty yells at him for being a prick. Cut to the same house from earlier. A burglar breaks in and finds a sexy, tight, naked blonde woman lying in bed who invites him in for passionate sex. It's almost too good to be true. And then his stream of consciousness starts going crazy. He can do anything. Absolutely anything. Back in England, I don't know if it's the same day or whatever, but John's investigating some stuff, and he returns to his apartment and finds the Sandman. Dream says he wants his pouch back, but John says he sold it at a fucking garage sale in San Francisco. But then he says he probably has some information on it at a lockup somewhere, and Dream's like, okay, let us retrieve it. Later, John goes through his files as Dream just sort of like watches him until he finds a photo and says he thinks he knows where the pouch is. Later, John has his mate Chaz, who owes him a favor, drive John and Dream. John reminisces about the woman in the photo, Rachel, the junkie. The two arrive at Rachel's parents' place, and Dream walks to the door and says,
"The pouch is here, and more than the pouch. This house is dangerous."
Then Constantine runs back to his buddy and tells him to roll up the windows and lock the doors and to drive away at the first sign of trouble. Dream then opens the door and the two enter the apparently abandoned abode. They make their way up the stairs where they find the burglar being eaten by dreams. Morpheus produces a light and they open a door which John discovers is covered in something. Then he's plummeting through the clouds towards the city, but Dream grabs hold of him. Then their heads grow giant and Dream creates more light, revealing that the entire room is covered in a still alive human body. Probably Rachel's dad. The two open another door to find slimy, demonic figures emerging from the walls, and Dream orders the creatures to let them through, and then they realize that he is their master, and the living dreams return into the walls. Dream makes his way to the door at the end of the hall, and opens it, and a frail voice says,
"Hello, John. Is that you? I've had such a wonderful dream."
And it's revealed that Rachel lies in the bed in a disgusting condition due to unknown amounts of dream sand, her skin dissolving, her hair falling out, her body failing. Dream picks up the pouch and is like,
"Okay, let's get the fuck out of here."
But John says that he can't leave her like this, and Dream's like,
"Very well. Go outside."
Dream then grabs a handful of sand and sets it down onto Rachel's face. And in her final dream, Rachel's body is reborn, and she finds John Constantine waiting for her. They then walk off into the sunset, a happy ending. And in the real world, Dream places a sheet over her dead body. Dream leaves the home and tells Constantine that she died peacefully and happy. Then he says goodbye and begins to disappear, but John asks for a quick favor. For the last 10 years, he's been having bad nightmares for most nights, and before he can finish his request, Dream agrees and disappears. Within the dreaming, Morpheus stands at the edge of a dock. He sifts through the sand, trying to put off his inevitable meeting with Morningstar. Then he takes one weird Dr. Seuss foot off the dock as he plunges downward into the darkness and into hell. He stands before the flesh-walled gate as the little doorman with an axe hand comes to see who it is. And Dream explains who he is and why he's there, and the demon's like,
"So where's your crown?" "A demon stole it. I've come to get it back." "Oh yes, my clown. You're new in town. So where's your ruby?"
Then Morpheus grabs the demon and fucking just chucks him for insulting. Then Etrigan the demon appears! Etrigan leads Morpheus through hell as they just chat, and they arrive at Dis, the Hell City. Morpheus arrives at the doors, and he is met by Lucifer Morningstar, who kinda looks like Cate Blanchett playing Bob Dylan in the film I'm Not There. Morningstar makes fun of Dream for being captured, and then Dream tells him that he believes one of Morningstar's demons stole the helm, and he would like it back. Now. Then Lucifer says that things have changed in hell. It's now a triumvirate, with Lucifer, Beelzebub, the Lord of Flies, and Azazel. So Morpheus tells the three rulers that he is searching for a demon who has stolen his helm, but he does not know the name, and Lucifer says, "Then let us summon all of them." Cut to the plains of hell. The landscape is full of every demonic entity in existence, and this mandrill. Morpheus looks out upon the sea of demons and sends out his sand to find the culprit. All the demons then make sure that they clear away from the single pink two-mouthed demon in stockings and leather. Lucifer tells him that that is Choronzon. Choronzon. And Choronzon says that he traded it to a mortal fair and square, and under the laws of hell, he's in the right. Then he says that Dream must fight him for it, and as the challenged, he gets to choose the battlefield. The world turns into a nightclub called the Hellfire Club, and Dream takes the stage with a strapping fedora, and Choronzon says,
"So, if you win, I return your helmet. If you lose, you serve as a plaything of hell for eternity. our slave.
Then the Poetry Slam challenge begins.
I am a dire wolf, prey-stalking, lethal prowler. I am a hunter, horse-mounted, wolf-stabbing. I am a horsefly, horse-stinging, hunter-throwing.
Oh fuck, this is gonna kill my throat.
I am a spider, fly-consuming, eight-legged. I am a snake, spider-devouring, poison-toothed. I am an ox, snake-crushing, heavy-footed. I'm an anthrax, butcher-bacterium, life-destroying. I am a worm, space-floating, life-nurturing. I am a nova, all-exploding, planet-cremating. I am the universe, all things encompassing, all life embracing. I am the anti-life, the death of judgment. I am the dark at the end of everything, the end of the universe, God's world of everything. And what will you be then, Dream Lord? I am hope. Oh, then I'm... Oh, then I'm... I don't know.
Then Morpheus wins the challenge, and Choronzon is stripped and wrapped in thorns to be tortured for eternity. Morpheus is granted his helm and thanks the three for being so honorable, and Lucifer says, "Honorable? You joke, surely. The million lords of hell stand arrayed about you. Tell us why we should let you leave. You have no power here."
You say I have no power. Perhaps you speak the truth. But ask yourselves, all of you, what power would hell have if those here imprisoned were not able to dream of heaven?
Then Morpheus makes his way through the crowd, as all the demons stand aside for him. Cut to Arkham Asylum. An old guard brings John Dee the news that his mother died, and that she wanted him to have this, eyeball necklace. Later, as the moon rests over the asylum, John Dee escapes his cell and makes his way to the dining hall. He walks inside and closes the door to find a patient who has hanged himself. Just kidding, he's actually alive, and it's really our dear old friend, Dr. Jonathan Crane, aka Scarecrow, and his giant head. A running theme in the issues drawn by Sam Keith is that the characters will be drawn with massive disproportionate heads, like it's some sort of dream. Anyway, these two weirdos chat, and Crane says he's doing this to, scare people because it's the night of April Fools or something, and John Dee tells him that he's going to escape Arkham and rule the world. So he just climbs out of the fucking window and over a barbed wire fence, just in time for a woman who is driving by to be taken hostage and turned into his personal chauffeur. Cut to Apocalypse. A young Scott-Free, aka Mr. Miracle, makes his way through the dangerous traps created by Granny Goodness until he falls into a black pit, but is caught by Dream. Scott wakes up to find the pale man sitting on his bed, and Dream tells Scott he's come to reclaim his ruby. Meanwhile, back on the desolate road, John Dee and the woman drive, and she freaks out at him, and John's like,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you.
fuck me. The things I do for entertainment. The things I do for love. Then they start talking, and she asks if he's cold without any clothes, as he pulls out a rotted tooth from his gums, and she says that he can have the coat in the back. Cut to Scott and Morpheus in a big computer room. Scott finds the ruby in the JLA database, I guess, and says that it was confiscated from some crazy guy named Dr. Destiny. And it was kept in the trophy room of the JLA satellite base, the Watchtower, which was destroyed. Dream says someone must know where it is, and Scott's like, let's see, who could know? Batman? Oh wait, what time is it? It's 3:30 in the morning, he'll be at work. Who else? Who else in the old JLA? Oh, I got it! Let's go wake him up. Elsewhere, John Dee and Rosemary continue their journey because you see they're now on a first name basis. And then he places the handgun on the dash as Rosemary, either plays along in the hopes that she won't be fucking murdered, or Stockholm Syndrome is setting in really fucking fast. Cut to the bedroom of the giant-headed Martian John Jones. He opens the door to find Scott and Lord Lazoril, the Martian god of dreams. John then tells Dream that he is the last of the Martians, and Dream informs him that he seeks the ruby, and John says that it would be in a warehouse in upstate Gotham, in a little town called Mayhew. Then Dream disappears as John and Scott walk to the kitchen in their matching Justice League robes to eat some Oreos. This is before DC got in trouble with the trademark of Oreo and had to start referring to the Martian Manhunter's favorite Earth delicacy as Chocos. It just doesn't have the same ring to it. Back on the road, John D continues the story of his life as they drive past the 5 miles until Mayhew sign. Meanwhile, Morpheus passes through the dreams of man to get to his destination until he arrives out of the mind of a sleeping security guard outside a warehouse. Dream enters it and locates his dreamstone, and as he inspects it, it erupts into shining bright lights of red and white, and Dream collapses to the ground. Outside the same warehouse, John D and Rosemary arrive, and she tells him to just keep the coat. And as he gets out, John asks her if the thing she said earlier about her husband being a mafia hitman is true, but she's like, "Oh, Harry? Oh, God, no. It was just something I said because I was scared that you were, crazy or dangerous or something. He is a high school teacher."
Oh, well, I guess it wouldn't have made a difference anyway.
John D then skulks through the darkness into the warehouse, where he finds Dream unconscious, and his darling Ruby lying next to him. John picks it up and says that he can already feel the powers returning to him as he walks past the corpse of Rosemary, whose car has seemingly rolled down the hill. Later, after walking through the rain, John D arrives at a 24-hour diner. He enters, grabs a seat, and asks for a cup of coffee, while he waits for the end of the world. Just before we get into this, there is an amazing fan film on this next issue of Sandman on both YouTube and Vimeo, but who the fuck uses Vimeo, right? So I'll link the film in the description because it is such a fantastic piece of work. Hour 1. The flies walked into the web. On her days off, after she's tidied up the house, Betty Monroe writes stories. She writes them in longhand on yellow legal pads. Sometimes she writes about her ex-husband and her son, who went off to college and never came back. She makes these stories end happily. Most of her stories, however, are about her customers. They look at her and see but a waitress, not knowing she hides a secret. She's never shown anyone her stories. One day she knows she will send them to Dear Abby or Earl Wilson or Jackie Collins. Then they'll be published and people will marvel at her depiction of a happy small-town life. People think Betty talks to them so easily because she's a waitress. They don't realize she's just gathering material. "Betty, I'm gonna go use the bathroom. If Donna comes by, tell her to wait, okay?" She knows Judy's story. She's not small-minded, but what those two girls do is a sin against God. But still, Betty feels sorry for them. In her stories, they're both married happily to fine young men. Ma'am, could I trouble you for some coffee, please?" The young man, he'd spoken to her easy as anything, just as easy as he would a waitress. He's going to an interview for a big chemical works. Maybe tonight she'll write a story. He'll get the job, marry the boss's daughter, be happy. Then a couple comes in and orders as they both sit in the booth. The Fletchers. Town talk says he married her for the money, but Betty could see that they dotted on each other like lovebirds. Betty's stories end in a happy ending because she's realized the real problem with stories. If you keep going long enough, they always end in death. Then, a trucker named Marsh enters the diner and orders a cup of coffee. Betty knows Marsh's story. Since Marcia died, Marsh and Marcia, the writer in her whispers, they were obviously meant for each other. But Marcia drank herself to death. Marsh is a trucker these days after having gotten sent to prison for 5 years for stealing mail from his postal job. He now works at some upstate town, but he still looks in on her every few weeks, for old time's sake. They weren't just customers, they were raw material. Even the quiet little stranger in the corner seat. He'd been there in the diner since Betty had come on her shift, hardly drinking his coffee after coffee, just watching them cool in a world of his own. She wondered wonders about him. When things quiet down, she'll talk to him, draw him out. And when Marsh has climbed in his truck and headed back upstate, she'll write a story about him. And in it, she'll make him happy. Hour 2. He was forced to act to prevent any of the flies from leaving. Oh, I don't believe it. I'm gonna be late. Sorry, ma'am. I'm just gonna leave a 5 on the table. Oh, God, if I run, I should be able to... Ma'am, more coffee, if it's no trouble. Great coffee. Hour 3. Afternoon soap opera. Judy talks on the phone to her friend Rose about Donna's whereabouts. And when asked about the breakup, she calls Donna's mother, who yells at her in disapproval for their relationship, before hanging up and causing Judy to shout, "Tight-assed old hag!" before wishing she were dead. Hour 4. He watched television.
Look, everybody, it's Dino! Hey, kids! Dino the dinosaur's trying to tell me something. Gee, Dino, I don't know. It was Terry Pterodon's birthday today. Should we make him a cake? What's that? You want to tell me something else? We're gonna die? Dino says we're all gonna die. Dino told me. He says we should slash our wrists right now. And remember to slash down the wrist, boys and girls, not across the wrist. Oh my God, I'm gonna throw up.
Hour 5. The flies get restless. I'm saying it's weird, right? Nobody's come in. It seems like we must have been here for hours. But it seems like we just came in. Something's very... I love this place.
Me too.
Hour 6. Judy writes a letter to Donna, saying she doesn't blame her, and that she's sorry she hit her, and that she loves her, as Mr. Fletcher wonders and immediately forgets why he and his wife are in the diner. Hour 7. He makes them feel good. He makes their dreams come true, gives them what they want. Mark says, "Let's do lunch. Have your people call my people. Money, money, money." Gary's having a $20 hooker in the convertible. Afterwards, he'll beat her up, throw her out of the car, and drive off. He gets such a kick out of doing that. Kate knows she'll never have to worry about Gary's little infidelities again. No more lipstick on his collar. He's all hers. Hour 8. He moves among them, experiencing their little pleasures, their minor joys. The jewel whispers to him of elsewhere pains and far-away madnesses, of far-off deaths and distant terrors. This comforts him. Betty has dislodged Stephen King from the bestseller list. It does little for him. Judy's bittersweet reunion with Donna, however, provides fractionally more stimulation for him. And Marsh thinks he's dead. Drank himself to hell and gone, rigid on a slab, his liver having failed him, his skin slowly going cold. Dee almost gets enjoyment from that. Nearly as much as watching his jewel in action in the form of news reports of waves and outbreaks of madness, suicide, and bad dreams. Hour 9. Conflict, he decides, reveals character.
Filthy dark bitch!
Marsh, honey, please calm down. She's just a kid.
You filthy lesbo!
You bastard, I'll kill you!
All you need is a proper man. A real man. I'll show you, bitch. I'll give it to you.
Hour 10. They love him. Mark sacrifices his ring finger for Dr. D, and he licks the blood from the man's finger. A god must not appear ungracious toward a sacrifice. Hour 11. He catches up on the news. Nightmares, sleeplessness, and insanity are becoming a planet-wide phenomenon. No international heroes were available for comment, so we go to a local super team, the amazing Herschel and Betty.
Me and Betty figure it's probably Ray's.
Hour 12. It is time for them to get to know each other better. Kate recounts to them the story of her lonely necrophilia in a mortuary, and her lust to do it again. Hour 13. They get to know each other intimately.
The Addams Family. Neat. Sweet.
Hour 14. Midnight. He consulted the oracles.
Tell me my future.
You have no future, John D. It's a future bound by walls and guards and sour smells of madness.
Tell me my future!
You have stolen some of the power of the dreams. You will crush out the Dream Lord's life in your hands, John D.
That's good. I like that future.
Hour 15. He gives them back their minds. Temporarily. Hour 16. Party games. Murder in the dark. Hour 17. Confessions and penance. Marsh admits to Betty that Marcia knew about their affair, and that he had hated her, and even bought a crate of vodka with his paycheck and left it in their closet bedroom when he left town, as Betty hammers a nail into his hand. Then he tells her, Betty, when I was in the pen, I saw your son, little Bernie. He'd been hustling his ass in Gotham. Got picked up for knifing his pimp. You could have him for a pack of cigarettes. Betty says that she doesn't want to hear about it. She hammers another nail into his hand, but Marsh says, Betty, I did. Hour 18. He brings out the beast in them. The old male gnaws at its trapped front leg. The females, nervous of the coming conflict, huddle together for comfort. The pack leader is spoiling for a fight. The young male advances. Soon the females will all be his. The pack leader pauses, then springs. The leader's teeth are sharp and strong. The challenge has been met. The smell of blood is heavy on the air. Hour 19. He lies to them, telling them his story as they listen like children. Hour 20. It was time for entertainment. Hour 21. He shows them the delights of belief. Judy gorges out her eyes so she can see the glory. Hour 22. Hour 23. Hour 24. Dream finally arrives.
Hello, I'm glad to see you here. It was starting to get a bit boring. But you don't look strong enough to make it even interesting, do you?
As the world tears itself apart, Morpheus asks what John D is doing with the Dreamstone, and he tells Dream that he's using it to enter the world's deepest dreams, to dredge up the blackness from their souls. Dream asks why, and D says,
Revenge, possibly. Letting dreams of power. This is much more fun than just being the ruler of the world.
Dream sits down and tells D,
I made the stone from the fabric of my own being and powered it with my spirit. It was not made for this. You must stop, reverse what you have done, then allow me to use its energies to repair the world. The ruby contains too much of me, of my power, in its fabric. You have robbed me of it. I cannot use it, and am no longer strong enough to repair the havoc alone.
Yours? It's your power I've been using all these years? Yes, interesting, I see.
Will you return it?
Don't be stupid, I'm gonna kill you!
Morpheus calmly pulls out his helm and puts it on as he opens a portal into the dreaming and enters it, beckoning D. John D then emerges from a door as Caesar, as three women, probably the oracles, come speak with him. Then, two mummified figures wearing Dream's helm appear and turn into the wife of Frankenstein and chase D down. Suddenly, John D stands in a white void. Then he remembers it's all a dream and that he's here to kill Morpheus. He makes his way through the strange realm of the dreaming as his head forms into a skull just like his old costume. Then he begins destroying the dream world before Morpheus appears and tells him to stop. Then John D shoots the ruby at Dream to rob him of more power, and he shouts from his skull face,
Does that hurt? Does it? I bet it hurts. I bet it hurts a lot. What does it feel like to have your life sucked out? Tell me, I want to know. No, get away from me. I hold your life in my hands. I can kill you.
Dream continues to crawl his way towards John D, and in fright, John smashes the ruby, causing a massive burst of energy to hurl him away. Then he stands yet again alone in a white void.
I did it. I killed him. Whoever he was, the ruby's gone too. I feel so strange, so different. So, now I rule the dream world. I will hide in the dreams. I'll never go back, never leave here for the real world, where people hurt you, where they don't care, where they die when you still need them. I will be a wise and tolerant monarch, dispensing justice fairly, only shedding nightmares to rip out the minds of evil and the wicked, or anybody I just don't like. I'm the king of dreams of everything. I always thought there'd be more applause when I would become king. I thought somebody would say something.
And it's revealed that the white void is actually the Hand of Dream, who looks down upon the tiny little John D and says,
Thank you, John D. It has been so long. I've forgotten how much power I had in the dream.
What are you gonna do to me?
I'm not sure. You have used power none of your own, wreaked havoc among my realm, inflicted pain upon my person. For that you should be punished. But you destroyed the ruby, releasing the power stored in it, the control of the dream world. It's all mine again. It feels so good.
Are you gonna kill me?
I could. Perhaps I will.
Then Dream and John both appear in a bright field, and Dream says that the damage done to John's brain must have been considerable, and John just continually apologizes for all the harm he did. Then Dream opens a door and says that as John's punishment, he's gonna take him home. As they walk through Arkham, Scarecrow jumps out of the corner to try and scare him, but recognizes that John's back, with a friend. Then the three walk back to John's cell, and John apologizes again, and Dream tells him to sleep well. But John says that he doesn't sleep, and as Dream closes the door, he says,
Perhaps tonight you will.
Then Morpheus puts Crane back in his cell and tosses in some sand to make him and all of humanity sleep in peace. And all over the world, the once deranged and sleepless people fall into a relaxing slumber. Cut to Dream sitting in Washington Square Park, feeding some pigeons as some teens play soccer. Suddenly the ball flies straight for Dream's head, but he catches it with ease. The blonde teen runs over and gets the ball from him. He's like,
Whoa, sweet catch.
and then he runs off. Then we're introduced to DC's version of Death, who's like this cute goth girl with an Ankh necklace. She walks over and sits next to her little brother and asks what he's doing, and he tells her he's just feeding the pigeons, and she says,
You do that too much, and you know what you get? Fat pigeons. It's a line from Mary Poppins. I love that movie. You ever see it?
Then she gives him a recap of what Mary Poppins is, and she's like, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
What?
And she repeats,
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Utterly fantabulous word, huh? It means, like great, wonderful, ninchy, gnarly, peachy keen.
Then she asks him what's wrong, and he's like, what do you mean? She says that it isn't like him to just sit around and mope, and Dream says,
When I was imprisoned, I thought of just one thing: revenge. But when I freed myself, my original captor was already dead. And the vengeance I took on his son was fine, I suppose.
Then Death goes over and picks a flower as Dream continues to recount to her his journey, and she puts the flower in her hair as Dream says that his quest and purpose is suddenly over, and he feels like nothing. Then Death asks if he's finished, and she says that he could have just called her any time, but Dream says that he didn't want her to worry, and Death says,
I don't believe that. let me tell you something, Dream. I'm gonna say this once, so pay attention. You are utterly the stupidest, most self-centered, appallingest excuse for an anthropomorphic personification on this or any other plane. Feeling sorry for yourself because your little game is over? You haven't got the balls to go and find a new one. You're as bad as Desire, or worse. It didn't occur to you I'd be worried silly about you? My little brother going missing?
I didn't think.
Exactly. You didn't think, you lummox.
And the fucking soccer ball comes back, and because I guess these kids hate pale goth people or something, and Death catches it in her hand and is like,
Oh, give me strength.
Then the teen comes back and gets the ball, and he says that she's as good a catcher as her friend over there, and she's like,
He's my brother, and he's an idiot.
Just feed the birds.
it's like fucking sad Keanu. Then the teen stares at Death from a distance, like checking her out, and as she tells Dream that she has work to do, and then invites him to come along with her. Dream agrees, and then the teen comes back and says,
So, hey Fox, like, you wanna get a soda or something? Could I see you again? Sure, Franklin. I'll see you again. Soon.
Then he turns away, probably to give a thumbs up to his buddies about the hot goth chick he just scored, before realizing that she knows his name. And he turns around to question it, but the siblings have vanished into thin air. Dream journeys with his sister as they greet the newly deceased. And as they pass, people shiver, look away, uncomfortably muttering to each other. Death and Dream make their way through the city, and they arrive at the apartment of a fat old violin player named Harry. He realizes who she is before he says a quick prayer and accepts death. And Dream thinks to himself,
From the darkness I hear the beating of mighty wings.
At a comedy club, a woman nervously gives an audience her routine as they laugh hysterically. Suddenly, she's electrocuted by the stage mic. She appears next to Death and Dream as Death apologizes that her time was up, and she's like, Oh, god damn it, I was just getting good at that. And Dream hears the sound of her wings. As they walk through a crowd, Death says,
Gets me down too. Mostly they aren't too keen to see me. They fear the sunless lands, but they enter your realm each night without fear.
And I am far more terrible than you, my sister.
In a nursery room, a mother places down her baby before she goes to prepare a bottle. Death and Dream appear from the shadows, and Death goes over to cradle the baby and tells it that that's all the time that they'll get. Dream again hears the sound of wings as the mother returns to the cradle and falls to the floor. They continue, and Dream wonders,
I cannot understand why humans fear the sunless lands. It is natural to die as it is to be born, but they fear traitor. They feebly attempt to placate her. They do not love her. Thousands of years ago, I heard a song in a dream about death. One that celebrated her gift. That forgotten poet understood her gifts. My sister has a function to perform, as do I. I have responsibilities. The darkness lifts from my soul as I walk with her. I hear the gentle beating of mighty wings.
Later, the duo return to the park, and Dream says that she did teach him a lesson. Death says that she has one last appointment before she has to go, and from behind them, one of the teens shouts, Yo, Franklin! And Franklin again misses the fucking ball because he's just not good at this fucking sport, causing it to roll out into the goddamn street, which he then chases, causing him to get hit by a car and die. Death says goodbye as she leads Franklin to his body, and Dream walks away to the park as he thinks to himself,
There is so much to do in my kingdom. I have found the solace I sought, though not conjure a handful of young grade. I throw the grade into the air, and I hear it. The sound of wings.
The end. Holy shit, that was a long one. It's probably gonna be the longest video I've made. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, thought it was nice, whatever, give it a like. Apparently, I guess that helps on YouTube or something, I don't know. And subscribe for more, and subscribe for more comic review videos like this every other Monday. I'll see you then.